course, you can't start a mission until you design a patch. And so the first thing you'll see is our patch. We're very happy. It shows the Expedition 3 crew and the Expedition 2 crew there on the bottom, with the Russians' names in Cyrillic. And you can see the 2 shuttles signifying, we have the American commander going up and the Russian commander coming down, and the Expedition 2 and 3 crew. And there's our ride Discovery, just a beautiful sight out there at the pad at the Kennedy Space Center, ready to go. Here comes your crew, STS-105 crew and the Expedition 3 crew, in what I affectionately refer to as our pumpkin suits. Very flattering astronaut wear. Very comfortable too, I might add. Getting into your spacecraft is akin to like going out in the driving morning, getting your car, except some joker overnight parked it on its rear bumper with the nose pointed in the air, and you need about 3 people to push you up in the seat. Hopefully you don't bang your head on any of those switches and break anything and scrub the launch. We really weren't sure we were going to launch that day. We were given a really bad weather forecast. But about this time, when they pulled the white room away and they started changing our launch time, we realized that they were pretty serious about all this. 6 seconds prior to launch, they fire up the main engines here. It's quite a big deal. CJ checks out the main engines. He looks over me and says, we got 3 up at 104 ready to go. That's 1.5 million pounds of thrust there, folks. But hey, nothing compared to what happens when the SRBs light. 6 million more pounds of thrust, 7.5 million pounds of thrust. The 4.2 million pound stack just leaps off the pad. I'm here to tell you that's a significant event in your life. It's a little bit rocky inside, as you can see from this shot here, especially going through the thicker part of the atmosphere. This thing's going supersonic in 42 seconds straight up. If you look closely, you'll be able to see the shock waves forming over the front of the vehicle as we go through the barrier sound there going straight up. This is about the time of max dynamic pressure, also the maximum force in the vehicle, and then the air thins out real fast as we go up. Those solids burn for 2 minutes and 5 seconds, and when they're all done and the millions of pounds of propellant are all gone, we're going over 4 times the speed of sound. Then there's a train wreck. And if you want to see what that looks like from the inside, watch closely and you'll see the big flash, and that's the little engines on the front of the SRBs pulling the solid rocket boosters off of the shuttle. Now we're sucking that main tank dry at a rate that would empty a swimming pool in about 20 seconds, but that's liquid oxygen and hydrogen. And the 1.5 million pounds of thrust takes us all the way to 8 minutes and 30 seconds to 17,500 miles an hour, and we're in orbit. We do a quick maneuver here after we come off the tank. You see the flash, and then we flip over, and Dan and Frank took this picture of the tank right before we went into sunset. And just like that, 8 minutes and 30 seconds, we're in orbit.
Well, the crew went right to work. Of course, Doc had to whip out with some cheese tortellinis and eat them right away in front of everybody. The rest of us weren't quite feeling up to that yet. Here's Pat setting up, giving me a hand with some of the photo TV equipment, and Dan's getting the computer network ready to go. It's very important to help us do our job, and I was just really happy to be back in space. Frank and his crew were on the middeck shocking themselves with that thing attached to his leg. It's called H-reflex, and it looks like a lot of fun. But we didn't try it. Here's the rendezvous. Doc flew us up from below, and then we came in from the front on what they call the V-bar approach. Here's Doc flying the space shuttle. You see it's very bright. He brought us right down the middle of the corridor, and Dan was helping him out with the sensors and everything. Now, Doc didn't fly it this fast. You know, they'd be pretty upset if they saw that sort of thing going on. Here you can actually see the real space station in the overhead window coming down in a very nice controlled fashion. And here's the last few seconds right prior to impact. First thing Doc's looking for is the contact and the capture light. You'll see him check the panel down there, and then he was very happy. Unfortunately, Dan and Pat were doing the docking system, and that took them just a little while to get that all straightened out. They had to extend the ring and then run it back in, but it all worked out well. Frank was down on the middeck, and he just couldn't wait to get over to his new home. He's saying, "Come on, y'all, let's go. Hurry up." So Doc went in there and opened our hatch, and on the other side of the hatch was the Increment 2 Commander, Yury Usachev, who you've heard mentioned many times tonight. And Yury was very, very happy to see us, as you'll see. Gives the formal handshake and then a big hug, and everybody was very happy to see each other. This is the next shot shows what it looked like if you came onto the space station. There's Jim and Susan Jim's going to grab up a camera and take a few shots of us coming on board. You can see Frank's already over there. And Susan may think 5.5 months is too short, but look how happy she is there. She's waving with both hands. Now, being NASA, the first thing we had to do was have a safety brief. So Yury got us all together and told us the rules, how we were going to conduct this mission, especially the transfer, and keep everybody out of trouble. Here you can see doing the first few mid-deck transfers that we brought over that day, and it was time for Pat to go to work installing the MPLM.
We carried up a logistics module that was full of the supplies you heard us talk about for Expedition 3. Of course, it would have their food and some clothes, all the way down to things like toilet paper. So it was fairly important that we got it on board. You're seeing a computer simulation of what that would look like, and then here the actual footage. I got some great training from John Lemongelli. It was his first time through as the robotics training lead, and he did a great job. A little bit more of the computer graphics. Imagine bringing a moving van to your house to move, and the house being full of furniture and the moving van being full, and you have to somehow switch those two things. And that's what it was like with the MPLM. It was fully loaded, and they had a full supply for us to bring back on the MPLM. And that was Dan's challenge, how he was going to get things transferred. Once again, folks are happy we've got it up there, because now we know we've got a mission for Expedition 3. First thing they did was go and open the hatch, and I'll turn it over to Dan to talk a little bit about transfer.
Well, as Pat said, it's time now to unload the MPLM, and we had all of our transfer lists. Dave Parrish was here, got an award for helping us put all that together, but this is where the rubber meets the road. It's time to really take the boxes out. So we started with that technique, which was one man with 3 boxes, and realized in space you don't have to do it that way. And found that the bucket brigade was not only more efficient, but a lot more fun. And Doc was calling balls and strikes as we passed this back to Pat, and utilized Jim Voss's concept of how to do this, which was really the idea being temp stow it all, get it on the right side of the hatch, and then put it in its proper place, which worked out great. Yury Usachev did say to me after I was crowing about how quickly we had gotten the MPLM unloaded, he said, "Dan, that's very nice, but I want to remind you that it's easier to destroy than to create." He was right. It's a lot harder to put all those boxes back where they belong to come back home. And this was our first shot, and the ground wasn't happy with that, so we had to organize it a little bit better. Here's Doc working on the paperwork, because it does follow you up there. But in the end, every single item was accounted for and put away.
And it was time to get ready to do the EVAs. The crew spent a day getting out all the gear we needed and checking out the spacesuits to make sure that everything was ready to go. Here you can see Pat checking out his body restraint tether, and then we're getting all the equipment that we brought over from the space station organized, so we'll be ready to put it in the airlock when it's time to do the spacewalks. Here you can see the crew putting on their liquid cooling garments. In space, men do put their pants on differently. They put them on 2 legs at a time. So we got them into their suits. Had some good help from Jim Voss getting Pat and Dan ready to go outside on their spacewalk. And of course, we had good coordination with the ground to make sure that all the data was looking good on the suit. And then we were very careful about not missing any steps in the checklist and making sure we got everything checked off.
And now, after the many hours of preparation, it's finally time to come outside. From the ground, Rich Gavreau had spent the last year of his life teaching us how to do this right, and it paid off. We want to say thanks to him as we show you here graphically the concept of putting the early ammonia servicer from the shuttle to the station. The idea of this device is to provide ammonia in the case that there might be an ammonia coolant leak from the station. The real trick to this spacewalk was that the teamwork. Doc is flying the arm. Pat and I are out there coordinating together. CJ is got the whole choreography mapped and planned out and is guiding us step by step. And it's that kind of teamwork that in the end really creates a successful spacewalk. And there's also some things that happen on the fly, as the position of the servicer wasn't exactly what we'd modeled, but we were able to compensate for that and get it connected right on time. As Pat mentioned during the slides, we also had a couple suitcases of materials that we were bringing outside to remain out there and be exposed to space and then be brought home on a future mission. Here's Doc flying us. The experience of being flown on the arm is a really interesting one. As you're out there, you get far away from all structure on this arm, and then you hear Doc tell you to fasten your seatbelt, kind of looking around for that seatbelt a little bit. But again, the communication back and forth in many different axes of orientation is critically important. We worked a lot on that and got a lot of help from our trainers on the ground too. There's Pat saying hi from high up above Discovery. So after about 12 hours outside, both spacewalks, one, as I said, for the early morning servicer, and a second one to do some cable laying for 8A, it was time to come back in and get a little exercise.
We did get some exercise every day. Dan mentioned earlier that we had to go over to the space station to get some real exercise. Here we are using one of their resistance devices, much like being in a gym. There's CJ. He was able to tackle the treadmill and did quite well. You can see the bungees that are pulling him down. And then there's the exercise you get when you tell the kids to go out in the backyard and play, which is what we're doing there. The MPLM is just about ready to be closed up and put back in a cargo bay, so we took some opportunity to play. There I am doing a flip, and we thought y'all might enjoy seeing what that's like if you were doing it. Now, if that didn't make you hungry, nothing will. Susan talked about the fact that we would get together in the service module and share a meal, all 10 of us. It was great the first night we got there, and they invited us over to eat. Eating in space is a lot of fun. If you watch CJ here, he let a little bit of food get away, but that's no problem. It's just a matter of taking your spoon and herding it back in. There's another little piece. Doc did a great job flying the shuttle, but he had a hard time hanging onto his utensils. So once that was over, it was time to go home.
So Dan pushed the buttons there on the docking system to release the hooks, and we backed away from the space station, first very slowly, and then we sped up a little bit as we moved on out to 450 feet and did our fly around. So a good time to talk about teamwork on the space shuttle for all the kids that are in here. It wasn't just one guy flying. Like Doc said during the rendezvous, there's a whole group of people, and everybody's making an effort to make sure that the job gets done right. And this is when we got some really nice pictures, and we're able to reflect on success of the mission so far and how big the space station has gotten. It's just an awesome sight. We had one more thing to do before we came home. Pat deployed this small satellite called SimpleSat, and there you can see it coming out of the payload bay. The kids, when we go to schools, really like to see this sort of thing. It was time to have a little fun on the mid-deck. We're just trying to overload the commander here with these M&Ms and see how quick he can catch them. We're pretty quick. Dan's going to tell you about his fluids experiment.
Sometimes there's a chance to get to do some extra fluid mechanics experiments in space. Here we are with mango juice and red fruit punch, trying to demonstrate how it's possible to make your own concoction of fruit juice in space. And this is how you do it. And of course, the best part is when you're finished with the experiment, you just drink it right out of the air there. Tasty.
Well, here's something all you kids always want to know, because they always ask, how do you go to the bathroom in space? And adults, of course, know you do it very carefully. But think about it the next time you do, how important gravity is in getting things where they're supposed to be. You go number one right in their own funnel. And then when you need to do your other business, you need to get a good seat, get yourself all strapped in. And good body position and seal are very important. You can imagine how upset the crew would be if something came floating out of there.
sleeping is great in space. All you have to do is close your eyes and go to sleep, but you're not really sure where you'll wake up in the morning. So we take a sleeping bag, just find a ceiling, a wall, a floor, it doesn't matter, and strap ourselves in. Here I am on the flight deck, and once you're strapped in, like I said, just close your eyes.
Well, before we knew it was time to leave, our short 12-day trip was over, and so we're back in those comfortable pumpkin suits once again, getting ready to come home. Look out the overhead window here, and you'll see what happens when a space shuttle hits the air going 25 times the speed of sound. It literally burns the atmosphere around you. That's what those flashes are. Before we knew it, the guidance had taken us down on final to KSC with a beautiful day and a great lineup. And we went from 17,500 miles an hour to land about 2,000 feet down the runway at 200 knots at the Kennedy Space Center. And bring an end to our mission. The chute there slows us down. It's really effective. You can really feel that come out. It also helps cushion the nose as it comes down. That comes down with a pretty big bang. And we're firmly on the ground, and we're fortunate enough to have our administrator, Dan Golden, meet us there. The shuttle crew is real excited, wanted to go take a quick look at Discovery, our ride to space and our home for 12 days. And here's a graphic depiction of the continuation of the build of the space station. We're about halfway built with all the hardware up there. It's getting bigger. I'm here to tell you it's a really large space station, but it's going to get a whole lot larger. Some people estimate it'll be so big that it'll be bright enough to be seen during daylight passes. It's an amazing place that we have up there. We still have a long way to go, and we hope you enjoyed our summer vacation, STS-105.